Recording in progress.
Thor, did you hear from anyone that may not make it tonight?
So we're expecting Ken and we're expecting Dan to join us later, and Patrick is stuck at work due to the weather, so he's not going to be able to join us.
I did get I heard through a completely different conversation that he was making like 275 pizzas tonight for some for some cause. It was he's always taking on charitable things like that. That's wonderful. All right. So let me just pull up our agenda for tonight. Let's see here. Agenda and meeting packet. All right. So I'd like to, well, do we have quorum?
We do.
Fabulous. In that case, I'd like to call to order the City of Monona Sustainability Committee meeting of February 9th, 2023. Thor, do you have the roll?
Yep.
You got everybody's
Set there.
present?
Yep.
Fantastic. Is there a motion to approve or to start the approval process of the minutes? Could I have a motion, please?
Move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Wonderful. Now let's go through it. Is there anyone that has a suggestion for edits? Something that you felt was inaccurately captured, anything at all? It's been a while since we've met, right?
Yeah.
We didn't, yeah. Maybe hard to remember what happened.
We did have one earlier, Kristen, if you want to.
Oh, thanks. It minor detail, but I was neither present nor absent. In truth, I was absent, so we need to make sure to capture that. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. I do believe Dan is excused tonight. He's traveling, if I'm not mistaken. I forgot to let you know about that, Thor. All right, fantastic. Well, in that case, let's get on with it. So we've got our minutes that have been approved. Oh, I'm sorry. All in favor of approving the minutes with the amendment that Kristen brought up? All in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. Minutes are approved. All right. There are no appearances. There is no unfinished business, although, well, that's okay. New business. We're going to get a little update on our campaign for the smart salting practices. And then we're going to talk about some natural lawn permitting. And that's going to tie into some upcoming projects. Planning for the future, Earth Day, No Mow May, and Adopt a Storm Drain / leaf management. All right, so let's start with a report from Kristen and Ashley, who have been knocking it out of the park, like amazing. If anyone has, well, I'm just going to let you ladies speak, and maybe you'd like to just give sort of a quick overview on, in general, what has been going on since the last time we met last year in December with this campaign. Take it away.
Ashley, I don't know if you'd like to go first or how you'd like
Take it away. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, well, since we last met in December, and I say I was not present at this meeting, but we have been very busy since that time, building our work plan and executing it. And so the tasks that we've accomplished are quite a number of them. Ashley, with input from the team, developed some beautiful graphics that have been printed into bookmarks that we have used to help give visibility to our campaign. And those bookmarks have been distributed to municipal locations such as the library, other city points of access, as well as to Winnequa School. So the 3rd and 4th graders, especially at Winnequa School, have been working on environmental projects about their ecological footprint. And so these bookmarks have been very relevant to work they've been doing. Bookmarks have also been distributed to MG21 for these students for whom stewardship is one of the cornerstones of their curriculum. And so they've been, along with the flyer that we provided, the gorgeous flyer that Ashley designed, we're able to, give talking points to people, not only just with the bookmarks, but also with a window cling outreach that we've done as well. So we've been distributing the bookmarks in the locations that we wanted to give to high traffic areas. And then the window clings have been an opportunity for us to connect with businesses, provide a little education with the flyers, and ask if they would champion this cause by putting the window clings up in their businesses to show that they are salt wise and they are not going to be salty. So it was the "Don't Be Salty" slogan that we are getting out there. And so Ashley and I have documented our distribution, and we will be putting those results together to provide in a lessons learned on this project that is forthcoming. Other accomplishments during this project include the drafting and recording of PSAs to get out there on WVMO for our community to hear. And we've had some great collaboration with some other community volunteers working through WVMO to give us some humor. And so that's been really a great experience. And then we've also had content in the community newsletter for January. We have some other content to discuss for tomorrow's deadline for February. And then a shout out to the great work of Thor, getting our library set up, our tile on the landing page of the My Monona site to give visibility to the Responsible Salting campaign and provide links to articles and other important resource information. And so, Ashley, I'm sorry I ran with it. Anything that I
That's
forgot?
fabulous.
No, that
One
was
thing I
great.
thought, social media. Do you want to speak to the social media that you've also done too?
Oh, absolutely. This again is really for Thor to
Yep.
recognize the, I think on Facebook and maybe on the city page as well, keeping especially during the Salt Awareness Week, the 21st through the 27th or 24th through the 27th, Thor made sure to align with Wisconsin SaltWise to keep visible the content that they were putting out for awareness, for businesses and for citizens. And Thor, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so they had webinars every day for that week, so I was sharing those, and then we did get a snowstorm during that time, which was good timing, so I was able to just, remind folks to not use as much salt as you think you need and to share some of the resources that we developed there. And I think this is a good reminder for me to tomorrow morning, I should maybe share something again after this most recent storm. So I did ask other city agents, departments to share the post that I was sharing, but some folks are not as responsive. We did have the Parks Department share some of our posts, but I think that was it. There was limited engagement on Facebook, and I was sharing it on the Sustainable Monona page, which would be the city page, and then the page for the Sustainability Committee as well. A handful of likes every time, so people were seeing it, but it's not. Yeah, engagement is pretty limited with that, so it's something to keep in mind.
Awesome, thank you so much. So back to you, Teresa or Ashley, if you wanted to add anything to that.
No, I appreciate it, Kristen. I think you did a great job of summarizing everything you've been working on. And kudos to you for taking on a lot of that work as well.
It was a team effort. It was so much fun to work with you guys. Thanks.
How many businesses did you visit? I am blown away with you ladies. It's like you took one side of Monona Drive, right? One of you took one, and then from where to where, between which points did you visit?
I think Kristen had the larger half. I took north of Nichols and she took south of Nichols, so.
Oh,
Well, I think you had more success reaching more than I did. But we did what we could do, and we have it documented and kind of tracked. And I think you did a beautiful job, Ashley, capturing a level of detail with each location. So that I think sets a really nice, like a template for future years and what we want to learn from our outreach. So.
and you said that you've made a list of all the businesses, or you're in the process of making a list of the businesses that you visited. So that's wonderful. Okay. And when we met, you also shared some of your responses. Like some people were so welcoming and interested and happy to see you. And that sparked new ideas for maybe next year's campaign. Like maybe we bring in some businesses to sort of allow them to brag a little bit about the things that they're proud of and the way that they're contributing to keeping our lake healthy, so that's just great. That's really great. And that sort of leads me into what I wanted to very quickly talk about for next year. And it kind of ties into like the lessons learned. And when we're sitting, in, November next year, because we probably won't need to start so early next year. Now it's very, very nicely out there and documented. Even this year, January really is when things started to turn white in the world. I was so worried that we were running behind schedule because we didn't have it all ready to go in December, but it turned out that we didn't really get snow until January, So maybe next year we don't even have to start until mid-November. But when that time comes around, some of the things we talked about this year might be like, just to circle back with those businesses, anything else that you ladies would do differently, or things that you think you just, don't have time to do right now, but maybe put it on next year's to-do list?
I think one of the takeaways I had was kind of along the same lines of those businesses that are interested, making sure that there's space to at least share their stories, maybe in like a Facebook post or shout out. I don't know if there's like a, kind of a proverbial gold star that we could do. I know that a couple of folks that I spoke to were using a contractor that was utilizing beet juice instead of salts entirely. And they're really interested in supporting, keeping the lakes salt-free. So I think that having them be able to at least share their resources with folks would be great for other businesses if they're interested. And then another thought that I had as I was going around specifically with businesses was, maybe if there is a cohort or an offering of businesses that are interested in being on a mailing list, in terms of having information shared that way, so that we could have kind of an automated system as well. And I think also we don't, and maybe this is just a function of the sustainability committee, but we don't have like an email that they can necessarily, didn't, I guess, on the flyer, have an email that they could contact with additional questions. I did point folks to the My Monona website and of course this Wisconsin Saltwise website, but I think having a specific email if folks wanted to reach out, if they wanted to learn about new resources and speak with a person about it, I think that would have been a great addition for next year.
That's
Yeah, we
great
didn't think about
insight.
that.
I totally agree with that. I want to highlight and bold that.
I wonder if there
That's wonderful.
are any other groups that we might reach out to, like scout groups or churches. It is hard to get people to pay attention to our city site. They just don't. But there are places they do look at messages and, so I'm thinking, and certainly there would be churches here that would support that. There would be scout groups, I think, maybe that could become engaged. I don't know. And so that, and also the, what is it, the BLW Community Center, which isn't in Monona, but I think there are people from Monona that do utilize that center. And that would be an inclusive, kind of reach out to, I think, for whatever that's worth, either on this or other projects that may be more appropriate. But just some thoughts, I guess.
That's a really great suggestion to broaden our stakeholder audience, our collaborators, and we will definitely look forward to getting more of those thoughts from the group, and maybe even borrowing, stakeholders from other efforts that we do. We might see opportunities across efforts. So.
I think one last thing I was thinking about was along the same lines of bulletin boards or just public areas that we could leave a flyer, not necessarily for folks to take, but just as like a public announcement type space. I know that one or two of the businesses that I visited offered to put it in a public area, kind of like in a bulletin board type situation. So if we could identify maybe some areas around town or businesses that would even just be willing to keep that information out for citizens to see, and not necessarily just directed at the businesses.
Do you mean like the poster that Brad printed off the Saltwise website? He put up a poster like, or he or Thor put up a poster like at the library, at the senior center, in the city hall, and maybe just like distribute those posters out to like, yeah, why not? Yeah.
Either that or the flyers that we did too, those had similar information, but one or two of those in new places.
Yeah.
Would be great.
I just don't see how we could have come up with a better logo. I mean, it's brilliant. It's fun, it's punchy, and it's super over the top of Lake Monona. It says it all. Like it picture paints 1,000 words, right? It's just, it's wonderful.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. The bookmarks are beautiful. Something I'll add is that one of the places, so we printed 2,000 bookmarks, Susan, and half of those went over to like Sal's Pizzeria, and Patrick is putting them on top of pizza boxes that go out. The other half were distributed throughout the community at public places and places of businesses and the schools, as Kristen talked about earlier. The window clings, we did $80. How many window clings did we do again? 50 window clings for 80. That's right. And and for next year, I think, did we also say that maybe digging in a little deeper to the MG21 relationship could be an option that we wanted to explore? Okay.
Yep. I think too that we also had in our work plan, and we can take that offline, but looking at other, like the school district themselves, and asking if they have certified folks doing the salting and all of that. So.
Yep. Totally agree. Something else that was on the wish list, but just never sort of took off, it still certainly could, is that, Susan, the city of Madison passed an ordinance that sort of gave a little bit of power to their code enforcement officers, where you could actually cite a business or a resident for overusing salt.
I think
It's not intended to be punitive. It's intended to be educational.
Right.
But it just pulls in a resource that we already have. The city of Monona already has a code enforcement officer, and this person is already out and about leaving information on people's doors. So this would just give that person another tool so that they could educate folks. So we found the language that Madison wrote up. I kind of adopted a little bit and It's just a matter of moving it through council. So that could even happen this year. Something also that Madison did.
Excuse me, I
Oh,
just
go
have a practical question. How do they monitor that, or how do they know that overuse of salt is, how are they identifying that it's a problem? somewhere?
Great question. It could be something that a neighbor reports. If
Okay.
you see like,
Just
so one of
sees
the
them
things
throw
that
it
this-
all over, right?
yeah, so one of the really nice little things to remember that this bookmark and the listed was that you only need 1 coffee cup of salt to
Yeah.
do 10 squares on your sidewalk
Mhm.
or a driveway that's 20 feet long. 1 coffee cup. So if you ever see salt in a pile, that's just too much. You're supposed to see like a little space between each of the grains. So with that information out there in the community, it's something that I've become. I don't know about you guys, but I'm always looking for it. Now I'm like, oh, there's a pile of salt. There's another, there's a pile of salt. You could just, our code enforcement officer could approach those houses or those residents or those businesses. Yeah.
And we did get a couple emails this year where people let us know that where they spotted oversalting, and they let us know, and we had to tell them that there's nothing that we can do if it's on private property. They pointed out a few places like that the city was salting in front of the library, for instance, that had too much salt. So we appreciate those comments. But yeah, right now, if we get emails or calls about sidewalk generally, just say, we're aware that it's an issue, but that right now there's nothing we can do.
Not for long, right?
But they could encourage that person
Got
to
an
speak it up.
ordinance, right?
Yep.
Are you working on an ordinance, Teresa?
Yeah, I am. So anyway, another thing that the city of Madison did, I don't know if we have the bandwidth to pull off something this big. We're already asking our volunteers for a lot, but they had that really clever contest to name a snowplow. In Monona, we have public works equipment also. And if there is, an appetite, or if we get more members on this committee, more, horsepower, who knows, that could be something that is tackled in the future, but I wouldn't call it a high priority. I think the things that were already listed are the real biggies. So yeah, Susan, lots of things that have been going on. It's been really a
Great.
pleasure. Yeah. All right. Is there anything more to say about the winter salt campaign?
We will be getting, stay tuned, Teresa, Thor, and Ashley. Ashley and I are just going to put together some graphics. The February newsletter will be largely a graphic reminder with some links. We have a deadline tomorrow to get that into Anita, so we'll certainly do that. And then we will be working with you, Teresa, and Thor to kind of put together a package of lessons learned and some value delivery on the initiative. So
Fantastic. I'm imagining next year, the newsletter could have like spotlight on success. This owner of blah 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 business on Monona Drive uses beet juice.
yeah,
What a wonderful way to give that positive spotlight. So that's great. Yeah,
it's free promotion too for the businesses.
yeah,
And that's a
exactly.
really
We
positive.
should reward people for doing the right thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on to the number 6, letter B, natural lawn permits. This came up last meeting because we were sort of thinking about the No Mow May coming up and how last year was really the first year that we had yard signs, and that seemed to be, that's what tipped the whole campaign. As soon as people had a sign in their yard that sort of explained, the long grass to passerbys, there's just something about the American lawn that people just feel connected to that golf course perfection. And when the grass is long, sometimes people can feel uncomfortable. But having that yard sign, boy, that just gave everybody permission. It was wonderful. And sometimes people would ask, can I just not mow every month of the year? Can I just have a no mow lawn? Like, what are the ordinances? So, so we did some poking around to see what Monona's ordinances are. Let me see if I can find it in the package. It would be on page 9 of 17 and talks about natural lawns. Was everyone able to access the packet and the information within? I'll just give you a moment to get there if you need to. Natural lawns.
I'll pull it
And
up
oh,
as
thank
well.
you. Thank you, Thor.
63.5, right? Regulation.
So we already do have, I mean, this is, Thor, this is City of Monona stuff, right?
This is the City of Monona ordinance, yep, and I did
Mhm.
speak with our city clerk. We have one natural lawn permit on file, and it was issued 10 years ago. So they're only valid for 2 years, so it's expired. So, you know, we've had this document for a long time. It just hasn't been publicized and it's not really used. So we don't really have a sense of if there are natural lawns out there that people are growing without a permit, but right now there are no active permits in the city.
Okay.
So some of the key points, I would say, there was a question at the last meeting if it included just grasses or wildflowers. So the statute does, you know, call out the natural lawn is for both grasses and flowers native to North America. I would say if we're looking to update this potentially, we might want to, you know, say native to Wisconsin instead of North America to make sure we're you know, not inviting any invasive species into natural lawns.
I have to confess, I'm a little ignorant in this moment. It really is a problem to have plants that are native to the neighboring, I mean, like a plant from Minnesota or Illinois would be a problem.
I'm not an expert, so I don't want to speak too much, but you know, generally we're looking for native species and, you know, at least from a planning perspective, when we're working with developers who are creating landscaping plans, we're mostly encouraging native species, which would be native to Wisconsin.
Okay.
And I
Kristen,
think
you have a
some species are more invasive than others too, which, you know, they're more likely to provoke neighbors who haven't gone
Yeah.
along with that. But I think it's a challenging issue, really, but and up to the person who puts it in to contain it according to the rules. But you know, it's not necessarily easy one.
Kristen, you had a question?
I was just in response to your question about, you know, native to North America. I think it's fairly, there must be a list. I wonder if there's a glossary where they've defined, or maybe we could better specify what that includes.
Yeah, and the DNR has lists of like noxious weeds or plants that are not permissible, you know, to be planted and cultivated within the state. So maybe the ordinance or just the administrative enforcement of it is just we're using that list to make sure that none of those plants are in there. But I think it's certainly a conversation to have if we are looking to update this.
I just want to add that UW has a really great resource in a number of books one being the vegetation of Wisconsin, and most vegetation lists, of course, are listed as like state by state, but they're really by plant community and type. So forests versus like a grassland, which are of course across state borders. But yeah, to Thor's point, the state and a number of Wisconsin resources keep records of those plant communities that are healthy and natural for the areas that we have here in Wisconsin.
I'm sure Albert Gardens could help us too.
Our own library probably has some good things too. Maybe you're thinking like UW Extension. Is that coming to mind, Ashley, when you bring that up, or? Kristen, was-
UW Extension Arboretum, great book by Curtis is called Vegetation of Wisconsin, and there are a number of other books, and I'm sure at the Monona Public Library, but also our Arboretum probably has a great list as well.
Mhm. So I just want to sort of step back just a touch and say that it's my understanding that the purpose of our reviewing tonight this ordinance is to spot any language that might be problematic and in need of update. Is that your thinking, Thor, or just to familiarize ourselves with the ordinance as it is?
Yeah, no,
Maybe
I
both.
think at the last meeting, we had reviewed our own ordinance, and I think we had pulled up Madison's ordinance too. And a cursory glance noticed that ours was maybe a little more restrictive, and that if we wanted to encourage natural lawns, especially in conjunction with no mow May and that planning, that maybe there are some things we can do to make it easier to have a natural lawn within the city. So yeah, I think we could just go through quickly and just kind of identify barriers maybe within the ordinance.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm just popping ahead to like page 14 of the packet. If a person wants to submit an application to have a natural lawn, are there any barriers there? So yeah, I reviewed the provisions. Here's my signature. I have to submit a plan.
Yep, so generally the process is you would submit a plan that includes a statement of intent and purpose of the lawn, a description of the vegetation you'll be planting, and then your management and maintenance techniques. And there's a page to kind of diagram out what your lawn will look like. The lawns are prohibited on they're prohibited on right of way and city owned property, and then within 10 feet of a street where there's no sidewalk, and not permitted within 10 feet of an abutting property owner's property unless waived by that property owner. Ashley, you have your hand up. I think you're muted.
Sorry, thanks. I just want to make sure that we're clarifying that this is not necessarily, new landscaping that we're talking about. If someone adds, native plants to the front of their yard, this is a lawn that could technically be mowed that would need to have a permit. So it's not, if someone wants to go through, like we did, we removed all of our lawn and we put in a bunch of shrubs and flowers. That's not what this is talking about. This is simply for if you're looking at putting maybe down like a prairie grasses instead of, turf. I just want to make sure we're clarifying that distinction.
Correct. Correct. When a person says, I wish I never had to mow my lawn again, how can I make that happen? Mhm.
I had a question. I don't know if Thor, if you know the answer, if I can look into it too, but you know, you'd mentioned that in general, it seems like our ordinance on this may be a little bit more restrictive than in other places. And one of the things as I was reading through it that stood out to me was the 10 feet of an abutting property owner. That like if you have to do the entire border of, you know, your property from the to the right of way as well as all of your abutting property, that's actually quite a lot. I mean, considering how small some of these lots are.
It is. Yeah,
Um,
it is.
like you definitely are still mowing your lawn then, because if, you know, 10 feet is several passes with a lawnmower. So that was one of the things that stuck out, that I was curious if there are examples in other ordinances that's less restrictive to a smaller number of feet, or maybe just doesn't specify. I was kind of surprised that it specified at all, to be honest. Because typically, unless you're building a structure, there's, you know, your neighbor doesn't really have any say of whether, you know, something you do is on your property or not, so.
Yeah, I'm not sure for that specific detail in other communities. But yeah, you're right. You know, generally we have for our single family zoning district, right? There's setbacks for structures, but for, you know, the lawn that you're planting and the grasses that you're using, there's not, right? So it is certainly unique there to the natural lawn. Some other things I would like to point out would be there's a notifying adjacent property owners, and that would be those who are located within 300 feet of the proposed natural lawn site. In Madison uses, I think, 200 feet. You know, we do that for public noticing for like plan commission when we're hearing a zoning permit, or if there's a new development proposal, we'll mail adjacent property owners, and for that we use within 200 feet. You know, to let people know that there's a new development proposal near you. So we're, you know, you have to notify even more people for, you know, a natural lawn. So that might be something that could be reduced. And then within 15 calendar days of those notices going out, if 51% of neighboring property owners provide written objections, then the city would have to deny the permit. And at least Madison in their ordinance does not have that kind of objection. So those would be the big barriers that at least I noticed going through this.
So reducing the 10-foot barrier. I mean, as Sarah, I'm just looking down, I have a rug, you know, I have a 10-foot area rug. You'd be mowing your whole lawn at some of these little, you know, postage stamp yards. So yeah, good point. So the 10-foot, the notifying neighbors within 200 feet, not 300 feet, and then just striking altogether the concept that if 51% of your neighbors object, that, you know, I mean, as long as you filled out the application, you should be fine. Thor, I feel like perhaps the next step on this would be for you and I to just like change a little bit of the language, and then I could propose it to the council. Does that sound good to you?
Sure. Yeah, I guess I don't know if the committee doesn't necessarily need to make a motion for certain
Yeah,
changes.
we do.
Okay.
We do. So in that case, here are the next steps instead. Next steps are that you and I get together and we bring sort of a new copy to the committee. The committee votes to move it to the council.
Okay. think next steps also might be to just get this up on the permit itself on the city website. You know, it's not up there right now. If you search for permits on the city website, you won't find the natural lawn permit.
Okay,
And that's something I should be able to do.
that sounds great. All right, fantastic. Just taking some notes here. And then we can just do the same thing with the salt ordinance while we're at it too. Just get both of those in front of the council, in front of this body. Is there anything that people see with the application itself, with the form that people fill out, that jumps out to you as something that you would like changed about this? Name, telephone, address. So you do a little sketch of your yard. I mean, if someone just wanted to throw down a bunch of wildflowers and mingle them in with their grass, would that pass?
Yeah, that I'm not sure of. You know, I wonder. I would have to dig into the ordinance more to see how lawn is, if there's a definition of natural lawn within the ordinance, if it describes, you know, a size, perhaps,
Right.
size, because, yeah, you know, I think we don't want to require a permit for just having a small plot of plantings, right? I think the intent is more like Ashley was saying previously, for kind of your entire lawn, right? Or
Yeah.
a very sizable chunk of it is dedicated to its natural plantings.
Yep.
I would say that having that defined in this application form would be great, if possible, so that it's easy, so that someone's looking at this and, you know, has an easy definition, and it either fits what they're looking to do or not.
Good suggestion.
What sort of language would you like to see, Ashley?
The definition of what a
Okay.
lawn means in this context.
I think if it was like a percentage rather than size, again, due to the fact that lot sizes are different, if it was, yeah, I don't know the number, but if it was something like, you know, if you intend to replace 70% of, you know, current green space in your lawn with a quote natural lawn, you know, as defined in the ordinance or something like that. So it's like a percentage of the lawn. To Ashley's point of like, too, if people are landscaping in particular areas, like that's not something that requires a permit. But if you're trying to resod the entire front yard, or, you know, 75% of your yard, or however we would frame it, that might be a good way to do it.
And I think that the key here, from my understanding even, is, you know, what constitutes a lawn versus just re-landscaping. You know, if someone, like Teresa, you said, you know, if you're throwing some flower seeds down, is that considered reason enough to have to fill this out? I think having a clear definition of what that actually means will be important. If it, you know, if I'm not clear on that, then I can't imagine that other folks will be clear on it either.
What about the name of the ordinance? It talks about, it uses the phrase natural lawn. It doesn't say no mow. What if someone just wants to stop mowing their lawn? And they're gonna like mow the border so it looks intentional. And they're gonna throw some, you know, grass seeds, some flower seeds in there. But that's it. What if they just want to stop mowing their lawn and they don't really want to take? I mean, first off, does this scenario, would it happen? Will it is it something we need to consider? What are the risks that this is going to happen?
I think
I would, I mean, oh, sorry.
go ahead, Sarah.
Well, just from reading the current ordinance, I think that would still apply under this application if someone just wanted to stop mowing.
Mhm.
Because it says, the natural lawn management plan defined that, it's just a written plan related to the maintenance of a lawn which contains a planted grass that will exceed 12 inches of length, which, by the way, is also, I think, interesting, and someone oversaw that because above that it says that 8 inches is the limit. So apparently between 8 and 12 inches is a no man's land, but that's an ordinance problem. But it just says any planted grass. So I think, it could be your Kentucky bluegrass you have right now, or it could be a native wildflower, or it could be. So my understanding is that that's still part of this, whether you do something actively, like you're resodding everything, or you're just going to stop mowing. If it's going over 8 inches or 12 inches, depending on which paragraph of this ordinance you read, then you need to get a plan approved.
I'm wondering too, if the word natural is open to more interpretation than native. Someone could just say that their 8-inch long Kentucky bluegrass is now natural, simply because it's not being manicured. So just thought on the language there as well.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that because I think, just letting it grow is not a management plan, right? I think the point is you're selecting species where and specific management techniques that are specific to those species to help them thrive. So yeah, we'll want to make sure the ordinance is crafted to, I think, prevent just allowing the growth of a nuisance lawn, which is later defined in the ordinance.
Forgive my perhaps naivete with what would be included with this, but would it be appropriate to provide some kind of prefatory language about what the purpose of allowing for this is about, so that it's understood, the intent behind allowing a natural or native lawn, and that then to be in compliance with that, it provides the rationale. I don't know if that would be something that has been done or considered, just to put out there.
I think that's a good idea.
I do too. What is the ecological harm being done if people stop mowing their lawn?
It depends on what their lawns are made of, really. I mean, a lot of seeding happens by wind. So if you happen to have a lawn that's heavily populated by invasive or non-native species, then that lawn then becomes kind of a major seeding factor in other folks' lawn. Kind of like you see with like garlic mustard or things like that, just kind of take over, that end up being nuisance plants at a minimum, and then at a more broad ecological scale, they reduce habitat for beneficial species, both plants and animals. I think that, my suggestion would be a focus on beneficial plantings versus, I get the idea behind the no mow May. And I think that in that context of providing habitat for a short amount of time, it makes a lot of sense. But in terms of like a 2-year permit, my suggestion is that the idea should be more focused on beneficial habitats for native species, both flora and fauna.
I'm hearing you ask, I think the request is that we modify the ordinance language to focus on beneficial habitat to pollinators. Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yeah.
It is interesting that there actually is and can be ecological harm done with a nuisance lawn. It's not always good to just let it grow. So that is important for us to know when people ask those questions, right? Okay. All right, anything else? This is fabulous conversation. It really is. Do we want to amend the language to include the phrase no mow, or is it enough just to say it's a natural lawn?
I
Does
think
no
that-
mow imply? Does natural imply no mow? No mow is a natural lawn, but
I think it could be confusing if I guess I'm kind of seeing them now as two different concepts and
Yes.
two different issues, whereas this, application seems to be more towards the beneficial, the approval of a beneficial lawn, whereas no mow may is maybe just a separate concept, and that if you intermingle the language, then it becomes more confusing for folks.
but if you have a no mow lawn, it's just all year round. Is that a natural lawn? I mean, pea gravel is no mow. That's, so maybe it's not necessarily a natural lawn.
What wasn't the point of No Mow May originally to just leave it for that particular month so
Well, of
that
course,
the
of course.
pollinators, and then
Yes.
maybe that just leaving it like that, and that's the distinction,
Correct.
is it's just a short period and we can do this. It's different from the natural.
You are absolutely correct. And I'm not talking about the month of May. I'm talking about a person who wishes to have a year-round no mow lawn. So in the ordinance, it says natural lawn. Do we need to add language to the ordinance that, is it enough just to say natural lawn? Some natural lawns might not require mowing. Maybe it's enough just to call it all a natural lawn.
I think that you then have to define natural, because as you said, someone could just have a dirt patch. And is that considered an approved use of
Yeah.
the application?
That's
Okay.
why I keep wanting to go back in my mind to further specify native, if that's what we're getting at. And then for the specified kind of the purpose, what's the mission of doing that then? And so if you want to have a lawn that you don't ever mow, it must meet that criteria that we have defined very specifically. So
Yeah, I think that you'll get folks that are already doing a lot of work if they really don't want to be mowing and they have the means, they're already re-landscaping in a way that doesn't require this application. And so this, I think, kind of is focused more at a group of people that maybe either don't have the funds to re-landscape their whole yard professionally or on their own, and maybe they are looking at a way to, yes, maybe reduce their mowing, and how can they do that in, I think the goal of this group should be, how can they do that in an ecologically beneficial way so that it's not a gravel pit or
That's the
I'm just taking a look
problem
at Madison's ordinance real quick to see if,
It's
in a
that
sense, but-
I feel like what, maybe this is what Ashley's getting at. I feel like any person who would already go to such lengths, and they really understand what a natural lawn is. I can't, I would imagine there are a few people out there that never even thought that they needed permission to do that. And they've just gone ahead and done it. And they're not going to be going to the city hall and seeking out this, documentation. The question really came up after No Mow May. People asked, can I stop mowing all year round? Well, the answer is no, because there is some ecological harm that can come from it. But if you want to reduce your mowing, you can do that. Or you could have a no-mow lawn if you did it in a certain way. And this document should outline what those parameters are. Okay. All right.
Because there may be people that say, it's worth it for me to pull my grass or, start adding those flower seeds patch by patch until I get to the point where, it makes sense to do a permit like this. But
Yeah.
I think we need to help them figure out what that looks like.
Yep, so just
That's
quickly looking at Madison's, they have a list of approved grasses, native grasses that can be used. Those grasses still have to be mowed at least once between June and October. And then they define the natural landscape area by percent of the lot. So for instance, if you have a natural lawn in your front yard, it's 25. It would be, you need a permit if it's greater than 25% of your front and side yard lot size. And then in the backyard, it'd be greater than 50%. And there's still buffers. They have a 5-foot buffer from property lines. So, yeah, I think it would, be a good, we can get some helpful details from neighboring communities. Yeah.
That's great. That's great, Thor. Thanks. So why don't we just, are we ready to move on and just say, Thor, you and I'll get together and work it out? Yeah, okay. Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. So we were next just going to talk about some upcoming projects. And what I'd really like to do is, so we're going to be looking at page 16 of 17 in the packet. We talked about some upcoming projects, Earth Day, a parade, Fall Festival. This particular document that's in the packet is perhaps needing some updating. And I would say that we can do some updating based on, maybe I should share, or this is okay. I'll share in just a minute. So in my mind, we have to update this document for our, oh, I see, this is, the Saltwise is already accommodated, already in the seasonal campaign. So we've got our winter salting, then we've got the Earth Day e-cycling event. Well, no, we've got, Earth Day and then No Mow May. So Earth Day's in April, No Mow May. And then we've got our Adopt a Storm Drain in the autumn. And then we start with winter salting all over again. In the summer, we have some tabling events at the community festival. I think all that's really needed here is to, I'm not a big fan of the tabling events, but that's just me. Maybe I'm underestimating the good that comes from them. I don't want to overcommit. The folks on this committee work hard, and I don't want to push too hard by signing up for too many things. So to this, for this list, I wonder if we should reduce some of the things in the event column. I think I would suggest that we remove the Memorial Day parade, and if it is identified as part of the scope of the No Mow May campaign, go for it. But let it just fall under No Mow May as an optional strategy. I would also say let's remove the community festival, the National Night Out, and the Fall Festival from the events column, and say if these things fall under the scope of adopting a storm drain, go for it. So I think this list is really just one column would be satisfactory. We have our seasonal campaigns, Smart Salting, Earth Day, No Mow May, and our adopt a storm drain / leaf management. That's what I'd like to see. Is there anyone that feels otherwise? We can still do everything on this chart, but it would simply be an optional strategy built into one of those 4 campaigns.
So I've tabled at all of those events. And I know, and Sue has tabled, so not to put her on the spot, but you know, so from the people who've done it, our personal experience, I'm a fan of tabling. I would say I'm more than happy to cut out the parade. There's so much going on with a parade that people aren't typically like, you know, you get out of a parade name recognition, and we're not really looking for that as a committee. But when we've done tabling at these festivals, it has been a pretty good opportunity to like hand out some of the materials we have, and we've drawn people in with the big printouts of the dashboard, which people are, you know, often weren't aware of at all before, and are glad to see that things are happening with the city. And it really, there isn't a ton of prep time that's required because we typically have all those materials anyway, and like we can hand out yard signs, which we would have had anyway. And then it's just the 2 hours of sitting there. So, you know, I think if we're looking to pare down, I would say we could probably cut out National Night Out. That was one Sue and I did together. And that was one that I felt it seemed like there was, I'm not, you know, I don't have a lot of basis for this, but it seemed like there were fewer people who were interested in it being a community event than there were like at the community festival or the fall festival. Like National Night Out felt more like people were, it was an excuse to get their kids out of the house, and they were like dancing and having, it was a lot more focused on that than people that were like looking to connect with the community more and learn from each other or anything like that. So I would say, I mean, if we want to cut them, we can cut them all. I'm just, you know, I think that we've had some good experiences tabling, and maybe whittling down could make sense. And in that case, I would say keep the community festival and the fall festival, but cut the parade and National Night Out.
Okay.
And I think the other thing that I feel happens at these events is that we really need to pay attention to what the event is and what groups of people are there and how they want to engage, because, you know, a graphic with a, you know, circle diagram and, you know, most people cannot read graphs. I hate to say this, but I would say 98% of the community cannot read a graph. And no, I'm not lying either. That's sort of tested and true, but unfortunately, that, you know, and if you're trying to engage parents with kids, you know, that some activity or some, you know, to go along with it, that kind of ropes them into something fun. It just depends on what that group is and how you approach. I just think we need to simplify, make it less, I don't know, doctoral degree and more engaging for
Sorry,
the
go ahead.
work for whichever event, you know, depending on the events and where people are. And I agree that some are going to be more likely to succeed than others. So, you know, whittling them down is also fine, but just being, you know, just more conscious of our audience, I guess is what I'm saying. and how they can engage.
So what I'm hearing is a suggestion, to keep the community festival, keep the fall festival, cut out the national night out, cut out the parade. Yeah. That to me seems like a nice compromise here. And I will add the parade, for those that are new to the group,
Everything's frozen.
I have a little spot in the Memorial Day Parade where we have volunteers to push electric lawnmowers or real lawnmowers and do like funny like dancing with your lawnmowers, and it would be the mower brigade, and it could be kind of
Yeah,
great like
right.
to, you know, green lawn care. Yeah. Okay, so so that's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing cut out, you know, keep the two festivals, cut out the parade, cut out National Night Out. That's, are there any objections to doing that? I think it's one of me, it feels like a few activities that we've had some trouble finding volunteers in the past with our limited group. So I'm very okay with reducing that. All right. What I'd like to talk about next for the next, oh gosh, what did we start? We started at 6:30. Let's go to 8 for the next 20 minutes. So Thor, on this document that you've got here on this page that you've got, you also have below the grid just a really short little snippet of what each project means, what each campaign means. So for Earth Day e-cycling, all of that is something that you can coordinate. And in the past, there are some bullet points here that talk about publicizing the event. Were you able to learn or verify that the company that comes in to do the e-cycling, are they still going to be doing all the public publicity as well?
That I haven't been able to confirm yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
I
I just need to remember that the company sent a mailer to each Monona resident.
Yeah.
It was
Yep. So
pretty amazing.
okay, yeah, that would be really helpful, and I'll have to confirm. Our, I guess, project manager at the company left. We got a letter in the mail a few weeks ago that we have a new point of contact at the company for our event, who is the owner of the company. So she is pretty busy, it seems, and I have not been able to get a hold of her. So last I heard is that they are putting together a traffic safety plan for Nichols School, the MG21 parking lot, where it will be this year. And that's where it stands right now.
So Nichols parking lot, not Ahuska.
Right.
And what was the date?
Check it is the weekend before Earth Day this year.
Birthday is the 22nd, so subtract 7 from that.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have it off the top. Okay, it's April 15th, 8
April
a.m. to
15th,
noon.
okay. April 15th, that's a Saturday, 8 a.m. to noon, okay. So then if you could just circle back and just understand the promotion that they will be doing.
Yeah.
There may be very little that we need to do.
Okay, excellent. Will do.
Yeah, it's really nice. All right, so then our next two things are, if you scroll down that list, then Thor, I also would remove the forestry fund from this year's scope of work. I just don't see us having the bandwidth for that.
Okay.
It was sort of a project that was added recently and it really didn't get a lot of traction. a project that needs to be added to this list, right? So we have a combination of external facing community engagement campaigns. And then we also have this obligation and responsibility to work internally with the city to advance or to at least find new ways for each department to engage with the sustainability plan. And we will talk about that tonight before we head home. But what I'd like to do is admit that or acknowledge that we're not going to have enough juice to really hit this forestry fund thing. I know that it was a wish that we would promote it a little bit more, and I think that's perfectly something that can be done on the website, but I don't know that we need volunteers to really do a full-on campaign this year. All right. Let's see here. So what I've got in front of me, and for NOMO May, could we just do a really quick brainstorm of all the things we could do for NOMO May? I'll document it all. And then let's do a really quick brainstorm of all the things that we could do for our Adopt a Storm Drain campaign. I reached out to Sarah, and she'll be happy to do some work on any graphics that are needed for NOMO May. She was the one that designed that gorgeous yard sign. And there were also little flyers. And so she has the graphics, and thank you so much, Sarah. I know this is a busy time of year for you with spring elections. I reached out to Dan, and he is very happy to take the lead on the leaf management campaign. So that's wonderful. And I know, Sue, you had some busyness on your schedule that led you to feel that maybe leaf management would be something you would prefer to tackle versus NOMO May. I think I'll reach out to Ken Walls and see if he would like to work on the NOMO May project as well. And depending on the amount of gas that Kristen and Ashley still have in their tank after just coming off the salt campaign, we'll see what they're feeling for NOMO May. So why don't we just go ahead and quickly just do some brainstorming on what we might do for NOMO May. So first of all, the scope of the project, like why are we doing it in the first place? And I'm just kind of looking at a different document right now, my own notes, but you can keep this up on the screen if you'd like to. But to me, there's two things, right? There's raise residential awareness about the importance of protecting pollinators and the positive impact that this initiative has on pollinator habitats. Then the second objective is to increase the number of people who are participating, right? So you raise awareness and then you actually get people to participate. Is there anything else that you feel would encompass, the reason we're doing this? If you can think of anything as we move along, just go ahead and shout it out. So one of the first things that I thought we would want to do is we would want to check the inventory of yard signs and figure out how many yard signs we still have.
We have 9.
We have 9.
Nine.
Okay. So each one of those yard signs cost what, around $15? So they're very expensive. So we're going to have to also figure out how much we want to charge people for a yard sign. Do we want to just take it out of our budget and give them away, or do we want to collect some money for them? I think last year we were asking like at least $5 for every sign. They're reusable. You can keep them in your garage and put them out each year. So we'll want to do that. And we don't have to make a decision right now. I'm just saying these are the things on the to-do list that would be entailed in such a campaign. Another thing that I had that we might want to do is look for financial sponsors. Like if we're gonna print more yard signs anyway, is there a way that we can like advertise? Or maybe we have bookmarks that do the advertising, or flyers that we put on pizza boxes, because the yard signs are more permanent. You know, a person could, you know, just pay for it one time and then that yard sign would live on forever. So maybe we do something more with sort of like a renewable piece of material that has advertising. We'd want to do PSAs, we'd want to do the VMO show, social media, city newsletter. Those are just the obvious things that would go into this. We'd also want to, just the way that we coordinated with Public Works for the SALT campaign, which I thought was really key to the success of this program, unlike years in the past. We would also want to coordinate with parks. Last year, this all sort of came together probably in the last week of April. It was a whirlwind, last minute thing. And it was just, we took parks by surprise. But if we approached Jake and Missy in March about getting their help in May, I think we would have a lot more success. So we want to bring them on early, and probably Public Works would probably also be another one that we'd reach back to, because the city has responsibility for mowing spread across both of those departments. If it's a strip of land near a roadway, it's Public Works. If it's a strip of property in a park, it's Parks and Rec. So each of them have lawnmowers, each of them have responsibility for certain areas of the city. We could, just like we did with Saltwise, we could coordinate with the school districts. It's going to be the end of the school year. You know, maybe reach out to MG21. Who knows? There could be some really great opportunities there. Elementary school as well, just like we did with the Saltwise campaign. And last year, the school district put up signs at the district offices. So we know that they have these yard signs, and it's just a matter of circling back and seeing if they'd be interested in participating again and not mowing some of their patches of lawn. So to me, those are the things that come to mind when I think of a campaign. It's kind of the same things that we did for the SALT campaign. It really is. It's just the same avenues of promotion. The nice thing is we don't have to recreate graphics for this campaign. We've already got those graphics. Is there anything that anyone can think of that we would want to change or do more of for this particular No Mow May campaign? The thing that comes, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, the thing that comes to my mind is, do we expand it to include green yard care in general? That's my outstanding question.
My suggestion or comment, I guess, would be to, if we have the opportunity to incorporate schools, you know, kind of along the lines of adopting a storm drain, with the beautiful artwork that's been done. I know around Madison even, is there an opportunity to do some kind of public artwork with the schools, where students have maybe a blank canvas that is like a cutout shape of plywood that can be plopped in the parks, and they get to paint it like a pollinator, and then it can have a sign, you know, maybe on the back it has information or something like that. So it's more of like a, even if it's through, you know, the parks, like if they're planted around the parks, and that people could go and find information out about different pollinators, and also No Mow May and why it's important.
Right, because getting back to it all, it's all about raising awareness about the importance of protecting pollinators. I know that Kristen has a connection with MG21. Ashley, do you have a connection with the elementary school?
I don't, but I
Okay.
know how to cut plywood and would be happy to volunteer my services.
Because I know that you visited the elementary school, and I thought that was so wonderful. So Kristen, do you have the connection with the elementary
I
school?
do, yep, I was
Okay.
there, and I mean, my youngest is now past that age, but it is now in fact at MG21. But you know, there's a wood shop class. If we can like get this kind of a more lead time, maybe the students could participate in some way as part of their stewardship to promote this. I love the idea of like a you know, an installation in the park kind of thing that the students can take pride in. I don't know how you guys feel about this. When I was a kid, we had window painting contests hosted by the chamber. And so in the downtown, you know, now this was Halloween oriented, but I mean, it could be, you know, paint a pollinator or something, but it's another way of giving us visibility. It could be for, you know, even with any other campaign, it could be inviting though kids in the community to be in the spirit, and another way of giving visibility. But I think that's wonderful to be able to do this in the park setting as well. So we might also be able to incorporate MG21 students in. They are required to have projects. They're student-led project format. And as I said, stewardship is a component of one of their pillars, maybe to do a rain garden or, you know, foster some native plantings that they could provide some educational content around, something like that.
Yeah, rain gardens is another thing, like just general green lawn care, you know?
Yeah.
So with the green lawn care, I'll put there just the passing of the ordinance. Just make sure we get that on the to-do list. Yeah, MG21 is just a fantastic partner.
Have we brought speakers to the library before in previous years? So there could be someone who might talk on that topic. And
Susan, I think you're
Yeah,
rather connected with the library, aren't you? With their
yes,
Eco Action Tuesdays?
yes. And the answer is yes, we do. And actually, I'm meeting with Penny, who is the coordinator, and her husband have been, you know, leading this effort for quite some time. And I'm their secondhand gal. But so I'm used to the programming and so on. We're meeting very soon to discuss topics. I can certainly ask you if you would be interested in joining us. We had a group of people, and I guess about 6 months ago, who came up with lots of different topic areas. And usually Penny at the end then locates the speakers using the Speaker Bureau networks and so on, you know. But we try to find people. I know Brad has spoken at them before for storm drains and various things. So we, you know, so we do gather people from a variety of directions, and certainly it's, I don't know what the approach. I can certainly ask her if you would be interested in joining us, either just to listen initially or to share ideas. I think that might be fine, but I would want to check with her first as to where we are in the process. But we do have a group of about 8 people that were working with us initially to get these ideas. And now we're just refining and deciding how to plug them in and who's available and that sort of thing. But maybe, you know, if are you thinking for No Mow May particularly, or?
right.
Yeah, Susan, so for this campaign, what contacts at the library could you maybe draw in? So maybe there might be on the, you know, schedule of Eco Action Tuesdays, maybe there could be a speaker about Wisconsin pollinators or something like that.
I
If
can
you're making the schedule now, it sounds like great timing.
Yeah, it would be definitely great timing. And Sally Buffett too is very up
Yeah.
on pollinators, and she's at the library also. So, and she was one of the people having input to this discussion. I just don't know because we're like 2 days away or it will be in, I think in the next week that we get together. We just didn't finalize the date.
It's
But
fantastic.
so, you know, I don't know. I will talk to her and see if, you know, would you like to be there and hear the discussion, or would you like to be there?
So all
somehow,
I'm
or-
saying is, hey, Sally Buffett, the Sustainability Committee is gearing up for once again, a big push for No Mow May.
Mhm.
And if in conjunction, if they would like to, you know, offer as part of your standing Eco Action Tuesday series, if they'd like to offer, you know, bring in someone to talk about pollinators. That would just
That's
be another-
definitely things that we
that's all.
talk about. So, you know, I mean,
Yeah,
it would be
yeah.
certainly not
Okay,
out of the realm at all. And I can certainly say that that's something that we would especially value at this time. And it would be also, the hard thing may be for us to time it in with other speakers, because we're going to
Mhm.
kind of be planning out the whole.
the
And
whole
you
year.
you would want this to come right before, like maybe in the June meeting or something, you know.
Well,
Or not the
in
June
April.
meeting, the April meeting. Sorry,
Yeah,
going the
yeah.
wrong direction on the calendar.
right, yeah.
But yes, which is coming up pretty soon, and I don't know if she's got anybody locked in yet.
Okay,
Sometimes there are some already plugged in, but.
and for example, you know, we could have someone from the committee bring over some yard signs. You know, that people could, you know, win a yard sign, or, you know, maybe give a raffle for a yard sign, or we could have them for sale, you know, we could do that too at the library. Just FYI, Susan, I just learned that in the city of Appleton, where No Mow May was invented, right? Or so they say, there's a group called the Pollen-ablers. There's sort of a citywide group that is behind the No Mow May movement in Appleton. And maybe there could be someone there that would like to present remotely or in person. Who knows? Something to think about.
Sure. I will let them know about that resource.
All right. We're just a little over scheduled time today, so I'm just going to leave it at that. But I think very similar strategies are also put into the leaf management campaign in the fall. But I do want to point out things that are different about the leaf management campaign, and that would be that Thor, I think I sent an email to Brad just asking like his tracking system. I think he has been tracking the addresses of the people that have been adopting storm drains. And I would love to see that so that we understand how many storm drains are being tracked. And one of the strategies we talked about some time ago was when we were thinking about squeezing this in 2022, but time just got away from us. I think Dan Costello said, let's just reach out to the people who are already adopting and reach out to those stakeholders and see what we can do to make that easier and to maybe get them to be cheerleaders and influence their neighbors. So that was some two strategies that are a little different than this typical strategies for other campaigns. And then I'll finish by saying that Thor and I met with Brad a couple weeks ago, and we went over his he has a big old spreadsheet. We talked about the Monona Sustainability Plan and how we can re-engage city departments with the strategies that are listed in the plan. And what we learned from our conversation with Brad is that in about 2015, 2016, how far back did it go? They sort of started out gangbusters and they just checked off a lot of the recommended strategies in the Monona Sustainability Plan. And then they kind of hit a wall and they really didn't know, they struggled to move forward. And so Thor and I were focusing on, well, what can we do to sort of get those barriers out of the way and help? And at the end of the day, the theme that we kept hearing was that city employees are sort of waiting to receive a directive, waiting to be told what to do. And that cannot come from the Sustainability Committee. It really needs to come from the top down. So our next step will be to meet again with the mayor and see what can be done there. I know that in the last time we met with the mayor, she said, send us something. We're waiting for you to send us something. But what we learned is that that had already been done a long time ago, and we're kind of in a different place. And I think it had started before Mary was the mayor, and maybe she just didn't realize that that had already been done. So it's time to think of a new strategy, I think. So anyway, the good news is a lot of stuff has already been done. It's just really hasn't been communicated. Also, in that conversation, I reached out to Thor and I talked about, and then later emailed Brad about putting together sort of a very, very rough plan for getting Monona to 100% renewable or clean energy. We do have that commitment, and in a couple months, in the month of March 4th, a very interesting date. On March 4th, some time ago, some years ago, the city council passed a resolution for 100% clean energy. And we want to, and Brad said that he would share energy use data of all of our buildings. I know that this has been done in the past, but to reshare it, current data, and we'd like to map that out so we understand where we're at and where we need to be. And that's where I'll leave it for the night. I think we're at the end of our agenda. Let's make sure. We are.
Can I just clarify with regard to the meeting with, for the library? Was it Ashley or Kristen who proposed, kind of having a speaker on bees? Okay, Kristen, all right, I'll get back to you when I talk to her and, see what she says about including you, or at least having you as a listener or something.
Well, Sue, are you able to handle that?
Yeah,
Are you able to?
I just didn't know if you
Sustainability Committee?
wanted to, if she wanted to,
Oh, I'm trying to find ways to fit into your very busy schedule. I was just thinking that since
Oh,
you're
no,
already.
I'll be there. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just didn't know she wanted to be there. That's all.
Oh, okay. There's no harm in asking. I agree.
So,
Okay.
did you, Kristen?
I'll let you two.
Sue, why
decide.
don't you send me information, or you may not know this, we live on kind of just a few houses from each other.
Oh, okay.
So, anyway, if you have my contact information from our, I guess we have a contact list, you can reach out to me.
Sure.
Okay, great.
All right.
There is one more thing on the agenda that I will speak to very quickly. It's number 7, DEIB discussion items. I will just let you know that the mayor appointed me to be on the implementation team for the community of Monona's DEIB plan, the implementation of that plan. And our first meeting was in January, the second Tuesday of January, and we're meeting again in February on the 14th. And it was kind of just an, getting to know you type of meeting. And we've got 2 representatives from the Nehemiah organization that are with us to sort of guide us through some of the conversations that we'll be having. And our homework was to reread through the plan and come back with 2 or 3 of our priorities that are listed in the section of the plan that lists recommendations. If you go to the City of Monona's website and you just look up DEI, just do a search for DEI, you'll see the plan. It's just a beautiful, cover with this lovely wall mural on the front page. And just 2 or 3 pages in from the front cover, there's an executive summary, which lays out some suggestions. So we'll be working from that list to identify 2 or 3 of our top priorities that we can get moving on. It's been a long day, guys. Thanks for hanging in there. All right. Motion to adjourn, anyone?
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn from Susan, seconded, anyone? Kristen seconds, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Thanks very much.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Yeah, everyone.
See you later, guys.
Good evening.
Bye-bye.